Next, Mrs. Vaijayanti Lakshmi Vayapuri will be introducing former United States Ambassador at Large for War Crimes Issues, Mr. Stephen Rapp.
Good morning, distinguished guests, Honorable Prime Minister Ruthra Kumaran, and my fellow members of Parliament of the Transnational Government of Tamil Nadu. It is my pleasure to introduce Honorable Stephen Rapp to, to deliver his message at the second annual sitting of the third term of the Transnational Government of Tamil Nadu. Ambassador Stephen J. Rapp is a distinguished fellow at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum Center for Prevention of Genocide and at the Hague Institute for Global Justice. During 2017 to 2018, he was also the chair of the Father Renan Visiting Professor for Human Rights at Georgetown Law. He serves as chair of the Commission for International Justice and Accountability, CIJA, that has collected and analyzed more than 750,000 pages of documentation from Syria and Iraq. From 2009 to 2015, he was U.S. Ambassador at Large, heading the Office of Global Criminal Justice in the U.S. State Department. In that position, he coordinated U.S. government support to international criminal tribunals, including the International Criminal Court, as well as to hybrid and national courts responsible for prosecuting persons charged with genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Ambassador Rapp was prosecutor of the Special Court for Sierra Leone from 2007 to 2009, where he led the prosecution of former Liberian President Charles Taylor. From 2001 to 2007, he served as senior trial attorney and chief of prosecutions at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, where he headed the trial team that, that achieved the first convictions in history of leaders of the mass media for the crime of direct and public incitement to commit genocide. Ambassador Rapp was the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Iowa from 1993 to 2001. Ambassador Rapp has been an active participant in international forums, including events at UNHRC in Geneva, on behalf of Tamils for Justice and Accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all wholeheartedly welcome Ambassador Rapp to deliver his message. Honorable Sir, I welcome you to this virtual podium on behalf of the transnational government of Tamil Nadu.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that nice introduction. I just wish I were able to see all of you and to greet the dignitaries and my friends, Rudra and Manika and others that lead this organization. I am honored to be with you. Let me say, first of all, I'm not here to support any particular group's political program, but very definitely to support the rights of all of the people of this island where you've lived for a system of politics that ensures that the needs of all of the people are satisfied and met, and that the government responds to those needs. And among the most profound needs on that island are for truth and justice, particularly about the conflict that's cost so many lives, tens of thousands of innocent individuals that died during the course of the conflict over 2 decades, ending in May of 2009. And it's never too late for there to be truth and justice. As you heard, I prosecuted at the UN's Rwanda Tribunal. I personally prosecuted the media trial of the executives of so-called hate radio that incited the genocidal killing of the Tutsi ethnic group and the moderates that were supporting them. Almost 1 million people murdered in cold blood with machetes and hoes and guns over the course of 100 days. And you may have seen the news in the last week, where one of the individuals, who was in fact the chair of the board of that radio station, Felician Kabuga, whose crimes were committed 26 years ago, who financed and enabled the genocide and founded the radio station that incited people to kill their neighbors. That individual was arrested near Paris and will soon face justice, even though today he's 87 years old. And it's certainly a sign that when you commit crimes like this, there is no rest in this life, and there should not be that rest. The International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, an internationalized court in which many Sri Lankans participated as investigators and judges. Indeed, I had a Sri Lankan judge on the media trial. Was a court that held to account those responsible for this horrendous crime. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't, even while it was dealing with the mass genocide, it didn't deal with some of the war crimes, the targeted killings of thousands committed by the other side. And so today there's still a perception of impunity, and that impunity, the perception that people can get away with these crimes and bury the truth, may have contributed to mass killings by militia supported by those forces in Congo that have, because of disease and famine, cost millions of lives. In Sri Lanka, in Sierra Leone, I should note, both countries that begin with SL, but in Sierra Leone, I was proud to be the chief prosecutor. And there we had a truth commission that dealt with the horrendous conflict in which thousands of individuals were killed. And that truth commission determined that the predominant crime was by a rebel group, the RUF, the group that was supported by the president of the neighboring country, Charles Taylor. That group committed the dominant crimes, the massive amputations of arms and hands, the enslavement and sexual slavery of thousands of women and girls, the murder of tens of thousands, but also a group that fought on the right side, that had tried to restore democracy, also committed mass crimes and targeted innocent civilians in areas of the country that they thought were pro-rebel. And committed even some very brutal acts against women that they thought were close to the soldiers of the other side. We actually prosecuted both sides, not a lot of individuals, but the leaders on all sides. And every case that we had, we were successful in achieving convictions on some of the counts that we were alleging. But of course, we had to prove our case beyond a reasonable doubt. And since then, since there was a truth commission that found the facts on all sides, since there was an internationalized court, and it was a partnership between the country and the international community, 65 or 70% of the employees were from the country, but the judges and the prosecutor were a majority from the international community. And that was significant when we prosecuted both sides, because frankly, doing one side wasn't so popular, and we had a narrow vote. But I was proud that and you should be proud that the Sri Lankan judge actually voted to convict and to make the sentences higher and more appropriate against those on both sides. That was the late Judge Raja Fernanda. Now, when we deal with the situation in Sri Lanka, as I was called upon to do when I became President Obama's ambassador at large for war crimes issues, an office that later came to be known as global criminal justice, we have had a profound deficit when it comes to truth and justice. And it didn't begin even with the conflict between government forces and the LTTE. We see it in the hidden truth and the failure to even confront the mass graves and to identify people from the period of the JVP suppression. And many of those individuals that were involved in cold-blooded killing today are in high levels of the military and government without any recognition of that horror, but with the perception that because you could commit those crimes, you could get away with it and continue those crimes. My office was called upon to document, and of course we didn't have access to the ground to do proper investigations. And of course, at the time we were doing it, tens of thousands, more than 100,000 Tamils, close to 200,000 were being detained by the government essentially, in Manic Farm. And we didn't have access, but we went with the credible reports that we were able to gather, called for more comprehensive investigations. But certainly what we saw indicated that tens of thousands of Tamils huddled defenseless in so-called no-fire zones were killed with indiscriminate shelling, even while the government knew what it was hitting because it was flying drones overhead. And at the end of the conflict, surrenderees, including members of their family, were killed in cold blood, and you can see it in the videos, the cell phone videos taken by soldiers of people held and arrested and bound and alive as you or me, and then a few minutes later, images of them killed in cold blood, and even of women naked with their dignity being insulted by their killers. We didn't have justice for that. We in the United States government continue to demand that occur at the national level, and from the government of then President Mahinda Rajapaksa, the response was a Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission. And that's an interesting use of words, because in every other country in the world that's confronted its path, it's been a truth and reconciliation process. And it shows the adversity of the truth by this leadership. But interestingly, in this report, which gathered information around the country, there was at least a small acknowledgement that at least in 6 incidents, civilians had been killed, Tamil civilians had been killed, and they called for further investigation. Well, that was entirely too much truth for the leadership. That was sent to a military board of inquiry, which quietly found that there was no merit and persisted in the most preposterous lie imaginable, that no civilians had been killed. There has never been an operation like this, even conducted with the greatest care and the greatest observance of international law, which this one was not, in which 0 civilians have been killed. But as we noted in the report, and as I think people have to acknowledge, and it's a key part of truth, crimes have certainly been committed on the other side. We've certainly seen the accounts and witnessed from a distance the horror of the way in which the LTTE conducted its conflict. And while people may think it was justified because the asymmetry of the forces, crimes were committed that are never justified, no matter what the cause, including the killings of hundreds of innocent civilians in bombings of buses. The use of one of the most perverse tools in conflict, of suicide bombers, which actually creates a situation where no civilian, no pregnant woman, frankly, is safe on the street when you use those sorts of conduct. And the massive use of child soldiers, one of the crimes that we prosecuted in Sierra Leone, and in which the side there that fought on perhaps the more just side probably used more child soldiers than the other. But these are laws that apply to everyone, universally. They're not Western values, they're not Eastern values, they're not Northern values, they're not Southern values. They're values that all religions and all cultures respect. And the Geneva Conventions in which they're contained have been ratified by every single country in the world. The challenge in Sierra Leone, was dealing with justice and truth, and we met that challenge. In Sri Lanka, it took a great deal of international pressure, and I was proud to be parts of efforts that the U.S. government led, in which we pressed at the Human Rights Council for several resolutions, which called for Sri Lanka to do the right thing and to have a process of truth and justice. I went twice to the island. I saw and met and had quite contentious meetings with then Defense Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who's today, of course, the president of Sri Lanka. And I remember talking to him about the need for justice and on both sides. And I said, you know, you could prosecute people that are surviving for crimes committed by the LTTE, and we would help document those crimes. And you need to deal with the other side. And he was highly dismissive. He said to me, he said, "Ah, trials, who needs trials? They'll take too long. People will get off." And then a few moments later, he looks at me and in that voice said, "I killed you, I killed you, I killed you." That was the response of justice in Sri Lanka. So we pressed hard. And finally, in 2014, when nothing had been done to follow up even the modest recommendations in the LLRC report, we pushed for the passage of a resolution in the Human Rights Council that established an official inquiry into it. And that official inquiry, as we know, which was voted in March of 2014, that report was delivered in late August, early September of 2015, frankly, just as I was leaving my job as ambassador at large in the administration of President Obama. That did lead, because of the transition that we had, a transition that recognized that there were many people in Sri Lanka who didn't want their country isolated from the whole world, and turning its back on values that are certainly a key part of Buddhist religion and Hindu religion and Christian and Muslims, and turned back on those sort of principles, and rejected the Rajapaksa approach, and brought in a government that gave us both a president and a parliament that gave us some hope of progress in this area, even to the point of co-sponsoring a resolution in the Human Rights Council, which was passed on October 1st of 2015, Resolution 30/1, as it's known, that called for a multi-step process that would include both truth, particularly about the missing, something the government never really wants to do right, because of course if they got into the missing question, they would have to deal with those people that they had killed in cold blood, and the engagement directly of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who gave the order for that killing. And so we weren't getting much progress on any of those things because of the continued pressure for impunity. There were some positive things, certainly. The resolution called for there to be judges internationally, a recognition that to have a trustworthy process, they don't have to come from the North or America or somewhere, they can come from countries in the region. You need to have external actors that can help ensure the independence of the process. And when the consultative task force went around Sri Lanka and every part of the country, it found that people wanted to have international judges, and quickly, however, that was rejected even by President Sirisena and his leadership. So that team effort of justice didn't take effect. And the whole process in which there had been so much hope by Tamil survivors that there would be some identification of the missing, some truth about their loved ones, even though steps were taken, hearings were held, etc. Fundamentally, it was a process that didn't deliver in the end. And I know how critically important that is for the survivors. I mean, one of the most poignant moments that I had in my career, including when I was meeting with the survivors of the genocide in Rwanda, with women whose children had been hacked to death, before their very eyes, who themselves had been left for dead, and described the horrors of those killing fields with thousands killed in churchyards or other places where they thought they were safe. But I remember being in a church in Molativu, a Catholic church there, in February of 2012, and the survivors, women who had still shrapnel in their legs from being in the so-called no-fire zones, pulled themselves across the floor of the church and showed me pictures of their loved ones. And to be frank, they were generally of loved ones whose children, who had been abducted by the LTTE to be child soldiers. And they'd been seen 11 years ago just now, at the very end of that conflict. And now no further information about their whereabouts. And they begged me for information about them, and I took down their names, and I went back and raised these issues with government representatives, including with Mohan Perez, who was then advisor to President Mahinda Rajapaksa, later was the illegal Chief Justice of Sri Lanka. No action. no information was provided, except on the Friday night that I left. I received calls from people who had met with the women with me, who said they're now being harassed by the military and by the police, and they're being threatened with arrest for having talked to you. And you know what they said? They said, you might as well just kill us, because if we can't have truth about our children, life isn't worth living. That's the message that I get in so many of these conflict zones. The fundamental need for truth. And of course, when you have that truth, then naturally there's demands for justice and for doing it in an appropriate way. And to recognize the stresses that people were under conflict, and the crimes that were committed, and the need for reconciliation. But still the profound need to hold the true authors of those crimes to account. Because if you don't do that, those people come back and they insist on continuing those policies, and no one is safe. And today we see it thanks to the tragic killings on Easter Sunday in 2019, which is certainly the dysfunction of the prior government was a major cause of. But you see the return to power of these individuals, completely triumphant, saying no justice. Any justice that's happened so far is wrong. You know, we had some action. They weren't on the cases involving the conflict directly, but there were honest police officers who were pursuing cases against the senior military leaders, not because of crimes committed in conflict, but because of vicious, brutal crimes like the abduction and the murder, really the kidnapping for ransom of 11 schoolboys that were tortured to death in the Trincomalee military base. And multiple individuals were going to face charges for those. Now we have, in the kind of the most Orwellian, you know, George Orwell, who wrote 1984, described a dictatorship in which truth was lies and lies was truth, and where the philosophy was he who controls the memory of the past controls the future, and he who controls the present can really control that memory, that truth. And we've had commissions of inquiry in the past that have tried to find the truth. Now, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has appointed a commission of inquiry to suppress the truth, to basically take apart and dishonor these investigations and the victims, like those 11 schoolboys, and exonerate people guilty of their vicious murder for private profit, saying, oh, we can't go after the heroes of the nation. Well, if you don't go after those that you may call heroes, but who committed horrible crimes, you face worse crimes in the future. Well, those of us in the international community have not suffered as you have. But I think it's important that all of us learn lessons from the failures of truth and justice to date in Sri Lanka. And that means, I think, several things. One, that there not be normalization with the government of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, that until this government faces up to its obligations, it can withdraw from that resolution in Geneva. Big deal. It's still a resolution. It's still binding on the government of Sri Lanka until they fulfill those obligations. No normalization. Now, I know people say, and then the government will go all the way to China. Go all the way to China to borrow more billions of dollars to create a debt that it's impossible to pay, like in the Vanity Project for the Rajapaksas and the building of that port in the southeast of the country. That's not what Sri Lanka needs. It needs full access to credit, to trade with all the world. And that means that as tempting as it is for governments to say, here's one that supports what we want to do in some other areas, let's embrace it no matter what its crimes, there can't be normalization. And there needs to be continued sanctioning of those that, for whom there's compelling evidence that they were engaged in these crimes. And I was proud that in the Trump administration, in my former office in the State Department, on the recommendation of my former office in the State Department, has sanctioned Shavendra Silva. And even though he has this, this high rank now, he's not welcome to travel anywhere in which the U.S. has jurisdiction, and we call for the European Union and the UK and others to do the same, and for that list to be extended, because meanwhile the government's continuing to promote some of those responsible, based on credible evidence of horrendous war crimes. Those individuals should be additionally sanctioned, and anyone that deals with those individuals or companies that provide assistance to those implicated in these crimes should face sanctions as well and prosecution. And those of us outside the country should continue to work with the victims to document these crimes and to preserve that evidence and to find ways into court even now in third countries where we can achieve justice. Today in Syria, for instance, two key torturers for the government of Assad, President Assad of Syria, still in power in Damascus, despite 9 years in which he's killed more than 500,000 of his own people. Those two torturers are today on trial in Germany, who served his interests in allegedly torturing at least 4,000 of their fellow citizens, and resulting in the death of at least 58. So we should proceed with cases like that as well. Internationally, and we should continue to press for a future where it's possible to achieve truth and justice at home in Sri Lanka, and to end the impunity, and to make possible, because of meeting the needs of the people, truth and justice, that there's a bright future for people on this island, whether they be Sinhala or Tamil, whether they be religiously Buddhist or Hindu or Muslim or Christian. All of them have the same rights, and I will continue to press to make sure that occurs to the extent we can at the international level. And as long as I live, I'll remember those women in Molotov and the ways in which their efforts to achieve justice, even just truth about their loved ones, need to be fought for. And I'm with you in this cause for truth and justice, and look forward to working with many of you in the future, and with others for truth and justice for the crimes that were committed on the island of Sri Lanka. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Rapp. We absolutely love having you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
அடுத்ததாக தோழர் தியாகராயா தமிழ் ஆக்கம் செய்வார். He will be translating Ambassador Rapp's words from English to Tamil.
வணக்கம். ஸ்டீஃபன் ராப் அவர்கள் ஆற்றிய நீண்ட உரையினுடைய மிகச் சுருக்கமான ஒரு முன்வைப்பு இது. இந்த அவையில் பேசுகிற வாய்ப்பை நான் எனக்கு அளிக்கப்பட்ட ஒரு பெருமையாக கருதுகிறேன். நீதிக்காக, அமைதிக்காக போர்க்குற்றங்கள் தண்டிக்கப்பட வேண்டும் என்பதற்காக, குற்றம் செய்தால் தப்பித்துக் கொள்ளலாம் என்கிற ஒரு பண்பாட்டை போக்குவதற்காக தொடர்ந்து நீங்கள் நடத்தி வருகிற போராட்டத்தில் என்னால் என்றவரை பங்களிப்பும் நான் செய்திருக்கிறேன். உலகின் பல நாடுகளில் மோதல்கள் ஏற்பட்ட பல நாடுகளில், போர்க்குற்றங்கள் ஏற்பட்ட பல நாடுகளில் நான் அமெரிக்காவினுடைய போர்க்குற்றங்கள் தொடர்பான அலைநிலை தூதுவர் என்ற முறையில் சம்பந்தப்பட்டிருக்கிறேன். அவற்றின் மீதான விசாரணைகளை நடத்தியிருக்கிறேன். அந்த அனுபவங்களின் அடிப்படையில் ஸ்ரீலங்காவில் நடந்தவை பற்றியும் நான் அறிந்திருக்கிறேன். அவை குறித்து விசாரணைகளில் என்னை ஈடுபடுத்திக் கொண்டிருக்கிறேன். அந்த அடிப்படையில் ஸ்ரீலங்காவில் நடந்திருப்பவை, இப்போது நடந்து கொண்டிருப்பவை நீதிக்கான போராட்டத்தில் ஒரு கடினமான கட்டத்தில் இருக்கின்றன. விடாப்பிடியாக நின்று, உறுதியாக நின்று நீதி கிடைப்பதற்காக போராட வேண்டிய தேவையில் நாம் இருக்கிறோம். 2009 ஒரு போரினுடைய உச்சகட்டத்தில் பெண்கள், குழந்தைகள் உட்பட ஆயிரக்கணக்கானவர்கள் மாண்டதும், பெண்களுக்கு எதிராக பல்வேறு வன்முறைகள் நிகழ்ந்ததும் பற்றி நானே ஒரு முறை இலங்கைக்கு 2 முறை சென்றிருந்த போதும் பாதுகாப்புத்துறை அமைச்சராக போர்க்காலத்தில் இருந்த கோத்தபய ராஜபக்ஷே அவர்களிடம் நேரிலேயே கேட்டிருக்கிறேன். நீங்கள் வேண்டுமானால் 2 தரப்பு குற்றங்களை பற்றியுமே விசாரிக்கலாம், ஆனால் எந்த விசாரணையுமே வேண்டாம் என்று சொல்வது நியாயமில்லை என்று அவருக்கு எடுத்து காட்டியிருக்கிறேன். அவர்தான் இப்போது நாட்டினுடைய அதிபராக மாறியிருக்கிறார். அவர் எந்த விதமான விசாரணைக்கு உட்படுவதில்லை என்று உறுதியாக இருக்கிறார். ஐக்கிய நாடுகள் அமைப்பில் 2012 தொடங்கி மீண்டும் மீண்டும் நாம் எடுத்துக்கொண்ட முயற்சிகள், மனித உரிமை ஆர்வலர்கள், நாடுகளின் தமிழ் அரசாங்கம் எடுத்துக்கொண்ட முயற்சிகளின் காரணத்தினால் 2014 ஒரு தீர்மானம் இயற்றப்பட்டு மனித உரிமை உயர் ஆணையர் அலுவலகத்தின் சார்பிலான ஒரு விசாரணை நடைபெற்றது. அது ஒரு பன்னாட்டு புலனாய்வாக, தற்சார்பு புலனாய்வாக அமைந்தது. அதனுடைய அறிக்கை இலங்கை அரசினுடைய பல்வேறு குற்றங்களையும் பட்டியலிட்டது. அவை குறித்து விசாரிக்க வேண்டிய தேவையையும் வலியுறுத்தியது. அந்த அடிப்படையில் 2015 அக்டோபரில் அக்டோபர் 1 தேதி மாந்த உரிமை பேரவையினுடைய ஒரு தீர்மானம் வந்தது. அதில் இலங்கை இதுவரை இல்லாத முறையில் அந்த தீர்மானத்தை தானும் சேர்ந்து கூட்டாக முன்மொழித்தது. நம்முடைய கோரிக்கை இது குறித்து இலங்கையை விசாரித்துக் கொள்ள முடியாது என்பதாக இருந்த காரணத்தினால் பல்வேறு நாடுகளின் அனுபவங்களின் அடிப்படையில் அந்தந்த நாட்டு நீதிபதிகளே அந்தந்த நாட்டு குற்றங்களை விசாரிப்பது தகாது, பன்னாட்டு விசாரணை வேண்டும் என்ற முறையில் ஒரு அயல் நாடுகளை பன்னாட்டு பங்கேற்பை ஏற்றுக்கொள்வது, அப்படிப்பட்ட நீதிபதிகளையும் சேர்த்துக் கொண்டு ஒரு நடுநிலையான விசாரணை நடத்துவது என்ற கருத்தை இலங்கை ஒத்துக்கொள்வது போலத்தான் அந்த தீர்மானம் இயற்றப்பட்டது. அதே போல காணாமல் போனவர்கள் தொடர்பான விசாரணைகள் நடத்தப்பட வேண்டும், அதுவும் பன்னாட்டு விசாரணைகளாக நடத்தப்பட வேண்டும். அதற்கான ஒரு அலுவலகத்தை அமைப்பது, சாட்சிகள் பாதுகாப்புக்கான சட்டங்களை இயற்றுவது, எல்லாவற்றையும் ஒத்துக்கொண்டது. ஆனால் எல்லோருக்கும் தெரியும், அது குறித்து எந்த ஒரு உருப்படியான முன்னேற்றமும் இதுவரை ஏற்படவில்லை. இப்போது அவர்கள் இந்த தீர்மானத்திலிருந்து பின்வாங்கி செல்ல விரும்புகிறார்கள். ஆனால் நான் சொல்ல விரும்புவது என்னவென்றால், இப்போதும் அந்த தீர்மானம் இலங்கையை கட்டுப்படுத்தக்கூடிய ஒரு தீர்மானமாகும். அந்த தீர்மானத்திற்கு அவர்கள் கட்டுப்பட்டாக வேண்டும். இன்றைக்கு இலங்கை இப்படி செய்கிற காரணத்தினால், நடந்து கொள்ளுகிற காரணத்தினால் இன்றைக்கு உலகத்திலிருந்து தனிமைப்படுத்தப்பட்டிருக்கிறார். கடந்த காலத்தில் ஐரோப்பாவில் நடந்த இதே போன்ற குற்றங்களுக்கு, குறிப்பாக ஜெர்மனியில் நடைபெற்ற குற்றங்களுக்கு விசாரணைகள் நடத்தப்பட்டிருக்கின்றன. மிக அண்மையில் கூட அப்படி ஒரு குற்றத்தில் ஈடுபட்ட ஒருவரை அவருடைய வயோதிகத்திலும் கூட கைது செய்து கொண்டு வந்து விசாரணை நடத்தி இருக்கிறார்கள். அப்படி ஒரு குற்றமிழைத்தால், மனித உரிமை சர்வதேச சட்டங்களை மீறினால் தண்டனை கிடைக்கும், விசாரணை நடைபெறும் என்ற ஒரு பண்பாட்டை வளர்க்க வேண்டிய தேவை இருக்கிறது. இதற்கு கட்டுப்படாமல் ஸ்ரீலங்கா நடந்து கொள்ள விரும்புவதை நம்மால் ஏற்க முடியாது. ஸ்ரீலங்காவினுடைய தமிழர்களுக்கு மட்டுமல்ல, அல்லது ஸ்ரீலங்காவினுடைய ஒரு மதத்தினருக்கு மட்டுமல்ல, எல்லோருக்குமே ஆபத்தானதாக இப்படிப்பட்ட ஒரு வல்லாட்சியத்தை, வல்லதிகாரத்தை அனுமதிக்க முடியாது. என்னை பொறுத்தவரை இலங்கையினுடைய தமிழர்கள், சிங்களர்கள் யாராயினும், அல்லது இந்துக்கள், பௌத்த மதத்தினர் யாராயினும் அவருடைய நல்வாழ்விற்கு இது சரியான ஒரு சூழ்நிலை இல்லை. 2019 தொடங்கி நேர் எதிரான எந்த விதமான நியாயங்களுக்கு கட்டுப்படாத ஒரு போக்கு தொடர்கிறது. இதை தட்டி கேட்க வேண்டிய கடமை அனைத்து பிரிவு மக்களுக்கும் இருக்கிறது. நீதிக்கான போராட்டம் என்பது மொத்தத்தில் அனைத்து மக்களுக்கும் தேவையான ஒரு போராட்டமாகும். தமிழர்களுக்கான போராட்டம் மட்டுமல்ல என்பதை நான் சுட்டிக்காட்ட விரும்புகிறேன். ஒரு கோரமான படுகொலைகள், போர்க்குற்றங்கள் நடந்து அதற்காக யாரும் கூண்டிலேற்றப்படவில்லை, தண்டிக்கப்படவில்லை என்பது தவறான ஒரு சமிகைகளை வெளிப்படுத்தக்கூடியதாக இருக்கும். ஆகவே மாந்தகுலத்தினுடைய நன்மையை முன்னிட்டும், பொதுவான நீதிக்காகவும் அமைதிக்காகவும் நீங்கள் நடத்துகிற இந்த போராட்டம், இந்த பயணம் வெற்றி பெற வேண்டும் என்று நான் வாழ்த்துகிறேன். என்னை போன்றவர்களுடைய முழுமையான அனுபவமும் ஆதரவும் உங்கள் பக்கம் இருக்கும் என்று உறுதி கூறி விடைபெறுகிறேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.